I wanted to tell a story about a few years ago when I was living in the Bay Area and the family that I had kind of began to unravel. I was living in the East Bay at the time, Oakland, Berkeley, and my partner at the time was going to graduate school for poetry. And we knew a lot of radical people who had different views on relationships and monogamy and polyamory and such. And there was one of his classmates who was this just beautiful, charismatic woman, really curvy and confident in everything that she knew. And him and her kind of connected. And he came to me one day and he said, "Andy, what do you think about having an open relationship with her?" And I thought about it at the time and I thought, maybe it's a good idea. We'd been together for like 7 or 8 years at that point, and I thought maybe it would spice things up a little bit, and I wanted to be open to it, you know? So I said, yeah. And of course, you know, it didn't really work out the way I thought it would. Him and her started seeing each other a lot, and they would talk about poetry for really long periods of time, sometimes with me, sometimes without me. And I kind of would sit there while they would feed off of each other, all of the authors that they had read, and I would just be silent and just feeling stupid, you know? And it all came to a head one day when I worked at a cheese shop at the time in Oakland, and they came together to pick me up from work, and she didn't get in the back seat of the car. I had to sit in the back seat of the car. And at that same time, I was trying to get a promotion at my job into the marketing department, and I accidentally spelled the word mozzarella wrong, which is kind of a hard word to spell, actually. I mean, you probably know how to spell it, but don't ask me how to spell it now, I forgot already. It's like 2 Z's or, anyway. So I went home that night when I didn't get that promotion, and I just felt like total dirt, garbage, and I was alone by myself, and I'd never felt that low before. I just felt like I couldn't do anything right. And I just broke that night, just totally broke. And I went online, and I found the cheapest plane ticket that I could afford that was in another continent, and I bought a ticket to Peru for 3 weeks. And I decided that night that I was just going to escape, and I was going to go traveling around Peru, and I was going to stay with this family in the Sacred Valley of the Andes Mountains. I found a family online through this program called WOOF, Worldwide Organic Opportunities in Farming. It's a farming internship program. And this family made cow's milk cheese, and I thought, I'm going to go stay with this family, and I'm going to learn their ways of how they make this cheese. And then I'm going to parlay that into a book about the cheeses of South America. It's never been done before, and I'm going to travel all around South America and write this book about cheeses and be the first person to ever do this and screw this place. So I ended up going, and I flew into Lima, Peru, the big city, and I took this overnight bus from Lima, I took a bus to Nazca, and I took another bus from Nazca to Lima, and the bus, it left at midnight, and I was really tired, and I almost didn't get on the bus because I lost my ticket at this chicken place, and I cried, and then I threw up on the bus because it was going through the Andes Mountains, and I got there at 5 in the morning, and I was just totally disoriented in this little mountain town. The only reference that I had to any place like this was Mexico, and it was nothing like Mexico at all. The people, they didn't really even speak Spanish. To be honest, they spoke the native language of the Incas, which is Quechua, which kind of sounded like, the closest it sounded to me was Yiddish, but it was definitely not Yiddish. So anyway, I get in this van to go down the mountains, and I had to pee so bad. And we're going down these mountains, and I'm shaking my legs, and I just gotta say, these are like the biggest mountains I've ever seen in my whole life. They're so much bigger than the mountains here. They're like 5 times the size. And it was this lane, this one lane going down the mountain. Not one lane each way, but one lane total. And windy road, and what they had to do was they had to honk the entire way going down the mountain, just in case someone was coming the same direction, so that they would know that they were there and they wouldn't hit each other. So he's honking and honking and honking going down this crazy mountain. And we get to the bottom, and I was just struck by the lushness of it all. It was so green and grassy, and the air had this fog that was coming down the mountains that kind of put all the colors into this quiet pastel where you could see all of the flowers and everything. And it was just it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And after about 45 minutes, we pull up to this house in the middle of nowhere, this kind of brick-looking adobe house. And I get out, and this woman appears, and it's one of the indigenous women of the area. She was wearing this puffy, colorful skirt and this big bowler hat. And she says, "Felicidad!" And I thought that meant congratulations, but apparently that was her name. Her name was Felicidad. And so I said, "Tengo que ir al baño, please, let me go to the bathroom." And so she said, "My son," in broken Spanish, "my son will show you the way." It's this 5-year-old kid. He shows me into the back of the house, behind the house, and it's just a little hut in a hole in the ground. And so I'm stooping over, spread eagle, to go to the bathroom, and I see the kid go behind the bushes, and he's 10 feet away from me. I can see him looking at me, watching me pee. So I felt really uncomfortable, to be honest, the whole time I was there. And I really wanted to bond with him so bad, but I was just so tired, and honestly, I think the whole thing, it gave me a panic attack, because I'd never done anything like that before in my life. I'm from Phoenix, so it was quite a leap. And I remember I watched them milk their cow and make their cheese, and the way that they did it was they would put the milk in a little white tub, and they would stir it around, and then add their cultures and things, and then to dry, they would just put it in the rafters of the house, and that's how it would dry. And it was really salty, cakey kind of cheese. And I remember that night, I sat there in the kitchen by myself eating the cheese in the dark while they were in the other room watching TV. And I just was freaked out. And that night I slept up in the attic, and I slept with my shoes on and my cell phone, clutching my cell phone, crying. And if anyone came in or anything happened, I was just gonna jump out the window and just start running. I didn't know where I was gonna go. I was horrified, but that's what I did. And I woke up the next morning just scared, and we made lunch together. First we picked potatoes, and potatoes are actually, Peru is the birthplace of potatoes. So the woman and I, Felicidad and I, picked potatoes together. And I just remember these potatoes coming up out of the ground, and they were every color. There was purple, red, yellow, brown, and she was able to stoop down like this for really long periods of time without, falling over or getting up or anything. And I just looked at her legs, and she had these crazy leg muscles. She was such a strong woman. But I think she wasn't very welcoming to me. I think she was a little guarded and scared about a new person coming into her family. And so there was a distance between her and I that I wanted to bridge, but I didn't know how. And I remember we made lunch, and she fed me this soup it's called cow. It's an indigenous soup, and it was just a bunch of bones and different discs of meat that you couldn't tell what was edible and what wasn't. And she had just taken it from the pot that she had. They didn't have a refrigerator. And I was really scared that it was gonna make me sick. Not that the food was bad, the food was delicious, but just that my stomach couldn't handle it. There was also some altitude issues with my stomach too. But anyway, after we made lunch, I asked her, "Do you like living here?" And she just said very simply, Of course I do. I've always lived here. My family before me lived here, and my family before that, generations have always lived here. And all I want to do is just honor the people that came before me. And I realized I have no idea what that means. I don't know my grandparents, really. I've just been wandering around my whole life trying to figure things out for myself. And it was beautiful, but I realized that, like, I didn't belong there. I didn't belong at that place. So right after lunch, I went outside and I waited until there was the first car I saw, and it was this white car that drove by, and I waved it down, and it was full of these teenagers, and they were all eating this chicken in these styrofoam bowls, and they kept saying, "Rica, rica, el pollo está muy rica." And I was like, "Hello, hello," and I said, "Vas a Abancay, the main city?" And they said, "Sure, yes." And I said, "How much?" And they said, "1 sol," which is like 30 cents. And so I said, "Okay," and I said goodbye to the family very quickly and got out, and the girl in the front seat, she got out of the front seat for me and she went in the back seat. And I sat down in the front seat and opened the windows and took off. And we started driving toward the mountain, up the mountain. And I just felt this incredible sense of failure. Like, I messed up again, you know? I tried and I was just too scared and I couldn't do it. But at the same time, being in that car, I felt free for the first time in a really long time. I felt like it was okay to be alone, and it was okay to be my own family. And after that trip, I mean, I spent a couple more weeks traveling around Peru, and I went back and I got back together with my boyfriend. We decided to move back here, and we were together for a couple years and it didn't work out. So I've been alone for the last couple of years by myself. I guess that's why I think about this story now. It's because I think that was the first time that I felt comfortable being in my own skin without somebody else to support me. And it was just in that car, driving up that giant windy mountain, honking the entire time. And the guy, he puts on the Cranberries' Linger on the stereo, you know that song? And it's just played me out. It was, and I'm in so deep. You know I'm such a fool for you. You've got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to let it linger?